I look at myself as, we have 182 employees right now, 20 managers, then a group of supervisors. And if you're not, I'm the head coach of a football team. That's really what it is. And a head coach of any type of team needs to be, strong, diligent, calm, even in chaotic situations, but also stern when needed.
Welcome to the Attraction Pros podcast, where we discuss the latest trends and challenges facing the attractions industry today.
We chat with some of the top leaders in the field and provide resources that will help develop your career in this great industry.
I am Josh Liebman. I am obsessed with the guest experience and helping attractions make that their top priority for success.
And I'm Matt Heller. I am passionate about organizational effectiveness, leadership development, and employee engagement.
Now sit upright, hold on tight, and get ready for the Attraction Pros podcast.
Hey, Josh, welcome to 2022. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here in 2022. How are you?
I am fantastic. This is our first recording in 2022, although spoiler alert, we did have an episode that already went live, but it was recorded in 2021, but don't tell anybody that.
Don't tell anybody. It's a big secret.
We are here. We're excited to be back for another year. Josh, I have a question for you.
All right.
When I say the letters FEC, what comes to mind?
I would say a fun and educational carpenter.
Carpenter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. What about you? What comes to mind for you?
Well, I'm really interested in that now, but maybe that's another conversation for another time. For me, the topic of FEC is Family Entertainment Center.
Ah, that's so much better than mine.
And part of the reason that comes to mind is twofold, because number one, we have Craig Buster today on the show, who is the general manager of a FEC, Family Entertainment Center in Sparks, Nevada. So we get to talk to him, but also we get to highlight the IAAPA FEC Summit that's coming up.
Yes, absolutely. So the IAAPA FEC Summit, just to highlight that really quickly, it's back after a 2-year hiatus. It is in Scottsdale, Arizona at the Wecopa Casino Resort from January 23rd through the 26th. And it's near some phenomenal attractions: the Arizona Boardwalk, Odyssey Aquarium, Bam Kazam, Mavericks, Octane Raceway. And the attendees will be from the area as well as all throughout North America as well, including Craig Buster from Wild Island in Sparks, Nevada.
Exactly. So we'll talk about that interview here in just a second to kind of tee that up. But one thing Craig does talk about is getting involved. And one great way to get involved is to go to conferences like this, go to IAAPA, go to BPAA. And the thing about this one specifically is that if you are an FEC operator, if you're someone that's involved in the FEC business, this is where the main players go, right? To really dive in and talk about the FEC business, not the fun educational carpenters, but the family entertainment centers. And Craig will be there. Craig's a member of the FEC IAAPA committee. And so he'll be there. Lots of great speakers, lots of great education, but probably most importantly is an opportunity to speak with and network with people who are going through the exact same things that you're going through. You are not alone. Nobody in this industry is alone, as long as you're willing to reach out and find the people that are in your community.
Yeah, and the theme for this year's FEC Summit is designing the future and maximizing growth. And I just get pumped up from that title.
Yeah.
The speakers that are going to be there, the educational opportunities are just absolutely going to be phenomenal, including the keynote speakers. There are several keynotes, including Kyan Krippendorf, who's going to be talking about being the disruptor, not the disrupted, which I know is something that you're very passionate about from a leadership standpoint, from disruptive leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think about what we've all been through over the last year and a half to 2 years. We've been disrupted, right? That is absolutely what we've experienced. So if we can sort of be proactive and take the bull by the horns and disrupt our own businesses, really shake things up, think about how we can do things in a slightly different way. I think I'm guessing that's part of the message from Kyan. Unfortunately, I haven't seen the speech and I won't unfortunately be there, but I imagine that's what he's going to talk about. And to do that is probably going to be a competitive advantage for people as they move forward.
Yeah. But the best part about all of it, well, the whole thing is the best part, but the best part that I'm going to talk about right now is that it's not too late to register. And we have an exclusive discount code for Attraction Pros listeners and viewers. You can save $200 on that registration if you register before January 14th. So if you go to iapa.org/FEC Summit, you can enter the code 22 FEC SMT 14 and you'll save $200. And by the way, if you couldn't catch all that, or if you're driving or whatever it is, that's in the show notes. So you can take your time and you can pull that up on your phone, on your computer, whenever you get a chance to pull up that registration page.
Absolutely. And Craig will be there. Craig will be able to, and I'm sure excited to meet everybody that comes if you haven't met him before. So the thing I think about the summit that's also important is how they're taking safety into consideration, just like at, all the other expos. They're following all the CDC guidelines, all of the local guidelines and everything at the hotel and the resort. This is also a BYOM event. Bring your own mask, as
I was going to make up my own random.
Well, you were so good at the FEC. I thought I'll just give this one by myself. But yeah, bring your own mask. There will be places where masks will be required. So make sure you have one that you like, that is comfortable. If you don't have one for whatever reason, there will be some on site that IAAPA will provide.
Absolutely. But for today, we're talking to Craig Buster from Wild Island, and we get to hear all about his leadership philosophy, the culture of the team at Wild Island, some of the innovative successes and failures that they've had over the years. And Craig is just a phenomenal person, really interesting to talk to. And I'm really excited to get to this interview with Craig.
I am too. And you talk about culture, and, we asked him sort of where that starts, and he pointed to his heart. And that was just such an incredible message, I think, that, we will hear more about. But he also tells some great stories about when their facility reopened. And I'm not going to, steal his thunder, but just listen for that story about when he talks about his facility got to reopen after 80 days of being closed due to the pandemic. It gave both Josh and I chills. So I hope it does for you as well.
Yeah, that's a good foreshadow right there. So I'd say in the meantime, let's get to this phenomenal interview with Craig Buster from Wild Island. Hey, Craig, welcome to the Attraction Pros podcast. We're really excited to have you here today. How are you?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Doing excellent. And we're really looking forward to diving into this chat here. So to get this started, Craig, can you give us a little bit of background? Tell us about yourself as well as Wild Island.
Well, let's see. I don't know how deep I want to go about my things about myself, but I'm a big music fan personally. I love live music, but I've been out here for about 29 years. My history at Wild Island is I started out as a go-kart employee on April 19th of 1993. And within 2 weeks, I kind of was digging the industry, and I went to my boss and I said, hey, the guys I'm working for, they're ripping you off. He goes, well, what do you want to do? And I said, how about I terminate them and take their jobs? And he said, okay. And the rest is history. We've kind of grown from there. So we went from having three outdoor go-kart tracks and some miniature golf courses. And of course, we have a water park. That's where we began. And then we started just continually growing our FEC. And fast forwarding to 2003, we opened up Coconut Bowl, which is adjacent to our property. And we've expanded Coconut Bowl twice since then. And now we're about 125,000 square feet indoor, plus our 2 outdoor miniature golf courses and a water park.
That's very cool. Cool start, right? You said, hey, look, I see what's going on over here. We've got to fix that. I'd love to get your take, looking at the history. And I'm always fascinated, but just by the term family entertainment center, because that can mean so many different things. It could be mini golf. It could be one go-kart track. It could be, a place like yours that is continuing to expand. That's almost like a small amusement park. So kind of what's your definition of a family entertainment center?
Well, family entertainment centers, I would agree with you. I think it fits the spectrum. It's whatever you want it to be, or you can call it LBE, location-based entertainment. those are such inside industry terms. Outside the industry, people just call us, what do they call us? Fun parks or things like that. And I wish that the word, family entertainment center would stick a little bit, because I think that kind of fits. But it also can be detriment to some businesses as well, because when people hear family, they think, okay, well, the young adults don't want to come there, when that's a good portion of our income and our revenue, and it's a great demo for us. So it's definitely a struggle there, but I would agree with you. I think it just fits a wide spectrum. I mean, if you have a miniature golf course and an arcade, sure, call yourself an FEC. Within some of the organizations I'm involved in, we've discussed this and went down that rabbit hole. And in the end, it was like, call it whatever you want. You guys you want to be an FEC, sounds great. We tried to fit some parameters in there, but it never stuck.
So one of the things that we noticed from your LinkedIn profile and your tagline, it says that Wild Island is the biggest little family entertainment center. And I think I can interpret what that means without having visited, is that it's little, but it's big, but curious as far as, is this a marketing slogan? Do you use this to set guests' expectations as far as what they are going to be walking into when they come to Wild Island? And kind of how did that slogan really come to be?
Well, that slogan really came to be because Reno is known as the biggest little city. So, we're 22 miles from Lake Tahoe, about 2 hours from Sacramento, and 4 hours from San Francisco Bay Area. And we draw pretty strongly from those areas as well. So I wouldn't say that we necessarily utilize that, but, it's kind of it's catchy, and people kind of like that. And we draw strong from, people that want to come over the hill. Maybe parents are going to go visit the casinos, but they got their kids with them. Casinos kind of put in some arcades and things like that, but we crush them. So they come to us, and they want to, have a good family experience, and then the parents can go out and have a good time at night as well.
Yeah. Craig, just before we started recording, you said that you were in concrete before you got into the FEC business and a go-kart operator. So I'm sure there's some jokes and some questions there about building a strong foundation, but I'd love to kind of hear what it was that got you into the FEC business. Like, why did you want to start, working as a go-kart operator? And then what was that spark when you said, I just loved being in the industry? What was that spark for you?
A good question. So I was pouring concrete, and I was kind of doing that through college, and living my life in a van for about 6 months out of the year, because I love the Grateful Dead. But anyway, that's a whole nother topic. Right. beyond concrete. I worked for a place called Jensen Precast. I was making septic tanks and DIs and things like that you put underground. And then the ownership came to me and said, hey, we have an opportunity for you. I really didn't have any clue what was going on. Once I got into it, just seemed interesting, and I figured construction wouldn't be a long-term solution for myself. It's tough. It's a tough life. It's a tough career choice, and I just didn't want to I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. And I was going to school for business, so it kind of fit. And then as time just kind of went on, I just kind of stayed here, and I really enjoyed the culture of it, and I bring a very peaceful mentality to things, but I'm also able to I think that helps me deal with the chaos that is an FEC or a go-kart track when, unfortunately a fight will break out, things like that. So just over time, there was numerous little landmarks there that I just kind of was like, this is a pretty cool industry. And then I remember going to Fun Expo when that existed many moons ago. And I was like, holy cow, there's a whole world out there. And I just felt that the industry was such a monster. And I just continued to get more involved over time. We've been IAAPA members for 31 years, things like that. And I just started to like it. I wasn't a typical 9-to-5 Monday through Friday guy. I mean, I do a little bit more of that now, but I still work my nights and weekends, and I kind of enjoy it. I like being off on a Wednesday when all of you guys are at work. I can go get shopping done.
Yeah, it can be nice to have those weekdays free to take care of those.
Correct. Yeah.
One of the things you mentioned there a few minutes ago is that you said you have a peaceful mentality, which helps dealing with the chaos of running an FEC, which can come in handy. You said sometimes if you have to break out a fight. or break up a fight, not break out. Can you expand a little bit on really what that looks like and the importance of it, and how that weaves into whether it's a service culture, the leadership culture, and the importance of coming to the chaos with that peaceful mentality?
Well, I just think it shows the strong leader. If a strong leader comes on fire, running into a chaotic situation, you have no control of that situation. Back in my Grateful Dead days, I learned a lot about myself and about people, but I just learned just relax. It's going to be okay, no matter what happens. My bus broke down all the time. You just have to deal with it. Sometimes you have to catch another bus. So I think it shows a leadership style, and that's what you want in a leader. You want somebody that can stay calm, cool, and collected. And we've had our fair share of some chaotic situations here, with some injuries and things like that, or as we mentioned, fights breaking out. I just think that that's the kind of leadership that the kind of leader that I want to be. I look at myself as, we have 182 employees right now, 20 managers, then a group of supervisors. And if you're not, I'm the head coach of a football team. That's really what it is. And a head coach of any type of team needs to be, strong, diligent, calm, even in chaotic situations, but also stern when needed.
Craig, can you go a little deeper on that coaching mentality? Because I think that's something that a lot of leaders talk about, but they don't necessarily embrace, because maybe they don't have a sports background and they're trying to be kind of a coach and coach people to a different level and even be stern when they have to. So can you go a little bit deeper into that philosophy?
Yeah, that's one of the exciting things about me is I love to develop people, and it's hard. I think I fail more than I succeed, but I just learn. Getting involved in the industry is like one of the number one things I will tell people is go get involved. I don't care what part it is. Go to seminars, go to the shows. I understand it's a chaotic time the last couple of years, and it's hard for people to get away or whatever. But when you can, it pays off tenfold. And I think that it has helped me continually grow as a leader, and it's helped my management team grow as well. And I've been able to kind of, tweak them a little bit. When COVID first hit for us, I'll speak for us personally, March 17th, we closed at 10 p.m. I was here. I'll never forget that day. And I remember a couple of days went by. We just didn't really know what was going to go on. We ended up only being closed for about 80 days. So that wasn't as bad as some people, especially our friends in California. But I told everybody, I said, I gathered everybody in a circle. We're all working. We continued to pay everybody, and we worked. And I said, all right, this job is like a totem pole right now. I said, I don't want you to verbalize it, but I want you to visualize where you think you land on that totem pole. Do you think you're kind of one of the better managers, maybe at the top, or are you at the bottom? I said, okay, now what happens if we don't know what's going to happen, but what happens if I have to chop the bottom 20% off? Then where do you land? Things like that, I kind of talk to them about, and just, you have to help yourself grow. I will help you grow until the cows come home. I will work hard for you, but I need you to do your part as well. And we teach ownership here, even though none of us are true owners of the business. If you don't act like you own this business every day, then you can't work for me, period. You have to take that ownership. That's so, so important. So we'll use the word we, and people go, oh, do you own it? Well, no, but that's just our mentality. So hopefully I answered your question okay there.
Yep.
Okay.
How can you foster that ownership mentality from managers or from leaders or from employees when, like you said, they're not an owner in the business, but starting to think and act like that then yields the results that benefits them, and obviously, of course, benefits the owners as well, but benefits the entire group and team as a whole, and the guest?
Yeah, well, our owners, they let us run as long as we're doing a good job for them and making money and making, kind of going in the direction that they want us to. Then we make a lot of decisions for the business. When it came to our most recent expansion, it was, basically myself and my management team. The owners didn't have anything to do with it. They just said, go. Culture, I think, is really key, and culture starts at the top, and you have to have a really strong culture. And we're in the people business. You have to be able to, get share that emotion with somebody, whether it's a success or a failure, and you really need to dive into that. Our managers have been here, I just figured this out, 14.7 years on average, which is great. I mean, I've been here a long time, and people in the offices next to me, they've all been here close to 20 years. It's culture, culture, culture. We pound that into them and make them feel like they own it. I mean, we have L10 meetings to where we make decisions for the business that can really affect things in a positive or negative way. And when we do that, we either, celebrate the success, or we dive into why we failed, and we just try to fix it. And we try to fix things pretty quickly. It really boils down to culture, our ownership letting us kind of take the ball and run, so to speak. And then myself and my counterpart at the water park, I think that we've done a good job in continuing to create that ownership culture and let them make, big decisions for the company, like, hey, we're going to build a go-kart track that's going to make X, Y, and Z in dollars per year. What do you guys think? And some of the best ideas can come from, a college kid that's a part-time supervisor for you. We involve them in a lot of our, we listen to them, and you have to listen. You can't just rule with an iron fist.
Yeah, Craig, you had a lot of really great insights in there. And I'm curious if someone were to come to you and say, look, I need to revamp my culture. Like, people aren't listening to us. We don't know what's going on. People are leaving left and right. Where do you think people should start with that culture transformation?
Well, we all have one of these things right here. It's called a heart. And that's where it starts, is you truly need to be able to, get people that are going to buy into what you're doing, and just speak to them like a human. I think that is so important. We are leaders, strong leaders in the industry, and we run crazy businesses and everything, but you also just have to really open up and be vulnerable at times to people and let them know that I'm just a human too. A lot of times people come into my office and I'm scared. I'm like, I'm just another human. Let's work together. I want to go clean a table with you, and which I really love, by the way, and sweeping. Big fan of sweeping, love it. But I want to work with them. Just because I'm the boss doesn't mean I won't. I will get in there and let's get dirty with you. And I think that there's pros and cons of that. Sometimes it can kind of open up to the, you got to keep boundaries there, I guess. But that's really just helped us over time.
When looking at kind of this ownership culture, and you talked about the importance of vulnerability, sometimes that could be taking a risk if it comes to making a decision that turns out not to be a huge success, whether it's implementing a new attraction or an operational strategy or obviously anything related to the business. Are there any favorite failures that you have that ultimately led to growth, but you have to reflect back on that and say we wouldn't be here if we wouldn't have had that failure?
Favorite failures is a funny way of putting it, because I don't know if anybody really has any.
Trying to spin it from an optimistic perspective.
I love it. I love it, man. It's great. But yes, we do. The two biggest favorite failures, as you would say, I'm going to totally steal. That's great. It would be when we originally opened Coconut Bowl, which is our family entertainment center. It was 42,000 square feet. It had bowling and a high velocity playground and some other things within the space. And we decided we were going to open a snack bar or grill, kind of the wraps and pizzas and things like that could service our standard guests. But then we also wanted to open a high-end restaurant. I visited some FECs that had some high-end restaurant. I mean, we had like blue cheese crusted halibuts and, chipinos and things like that. So we were going to mix that in. And people thought we were nuts. Well, we were. We completely failed. Running a restaurant, it was a totally new ball game for all of us. We hired some restaurant managers, and it was tough. And ultimately, that business failed. It cost us about $2 million. So we said, okay, let's lick our wounds. And we said, well, let's go after what we know, and let's go after our demographic that we know. So within that same space, we turned it into a family-style pasta restaurant called Spaghetti Joe's. Hired another food and beverage manager. That failed as well. And at this point, we're about $3 million in the hole is what we had lost at this point. And Now we're really licking our wounds, and ownership's looking at me a little funny. All right, well, hey, let's do blacklight mini golf because I know blacklight mini golf, and it's still there to this day. And what we learned is that the restaurant industry, and when it comes down to you're opening a restaurant, is that first night you put all this advertising out, you got to nail it, and if you don't, you're done. And I think what we were doing was too modernized or too advanced for what the city of Reno, no disrespect to where I lived here for 40 years, they were like, wait a minute, bowling lanes and Chipino, that doesn't seem right to me. It was a little bit too modernized, I think. So I think those would be our biggest failures, but I laugh about it because we learned so much from that during that time about different type of people to hire, and trying to find the right leader within our space, somebody that's willing to roll up their sleeves and just wear a pair of jeans and let's get dirty and let's go. And those guys we hired weren't that. They were executive chefs or high-end food and beverage managers that just wanted something different, and they just didn't fit our model.
Yeah. So kind of along that line, have there been attractions or additions that you've added or, brought to the table that were a little bit outside the box? Maybe not as outside the box as the blue cheese halibut, but that sounds good. But a little bit outside the box that maybe were a little surprising is how well they did do.
I guess the two that I would mention would be when we decided to build a high velocity, or the indoor interactive playground. Really nobody believed in it, and I was the lone wolf on this one. And when we decided to do it, and I thought it would fit the typical parent, being a parent myself, typical American. All right, I'm going to go out and take my kid out, and you'd sit down, you could watch TV, have a beer, whatever it might be, and let your kid play, almost run them, so to speak, let them run off some of that energy. And nobody here believed in it. The owner just finally said, all right, go ahead. And it was a huge success, so much to where we tore that one down. We built a bigger one, and it's just kind of a staple for us. I would say the other one would be one of our more recent attractions we put in with our expansion that we opened up in December of 2018, which was our blacklight go-kart track. We thought that one would do pretty well, but it blew our expectations out of the water. We put something that was we had a storyboard. It's very heavily themed. Basically, you drive the go-kart track and it takes you through a story. There's a waterfall. I mean, we really wanted to heavily theme it. I've been to plenty of go-kart tracks, and they're okay. They're nice, but they weren't. I wanted something immersive, and I think that it really paid off dividends. People walk in that door and they look at it and they go, I want to do that. And they'll pay whatever, basically. So I think that, as simple as go-karts are and as old school and they've been around forever, they need to be redone, and it's been successful for us.
Can you talk about just a little bit of maybe the planning, or I don't know if I want to use the word feasibility process too, but I think that's probably the kind of the best avenue. And looking at all the examples that you just gave, from the restaurants that didn't work, to the blacklight mini golf, to the high velocity, to just all of that, what would you say would be the breakdown of the intentional research and planning and feasibility that goes into it, combined with the gut instinct and just I would say the knowledge that you have of your facility, your guests, and your demographic?
I think you just have to know your community. We've been watching our community grow. We're basically like the small little Silicon Valley now. We have Tesla, Google, Apple, Switch. I mean, they basically got out of California because it's too expensive to run a business, and Nevada gave them a bunch, tax breaks to move here. And we have a bunch of land in Nevada if you've ever driven through it. So, I think just you have to be involved in you got to understand your community. Our marketing team does a lot of stuff when it comes to demographics and things like that. They dive pretty deep into, our Google Analytics and whatnot, and we make decisions based off of data. Data is huge, and this industry struggles with that. But knowing the community, knowing what it needs, and getting to a point where you go, you know what, we need to grow, otherwise somebody else is going to move in. our mentality has always been, we want to be the gorilla in town, and we are. And we will continue to be that way. We're locally owned. We're very proud of that. We're very proud of what we've done here in little old Sparks, Nevada. Half the time people don't even know where the heck we are. That's okay. That's fine. We're doing well. So, but I think diving into the data and just really understanding your community, I think that, it's no different than one of the big chains, that Dave & Buster's, Main Event, whoever it might be, Round One, they go in and kind of vet that process as well within certain communities and decide that they want to put a location there. So we just do that on probably a little bit more of a smaller scale.
Sure. Well, and Craig, you talked about associations earlier, and that's a different community, right? I mean, you've got your local community that you have to navigate and understand for your facility, but it's also the larger community, the associations, that can help you figure out, what do you do? What are those new things that you can put in? So can you talk a little bit more about your involvement, like in IAAPA and other associations, and how that's helped maybe you personally and as a business?
Yeah, so I'm on the IAAPA FEC committee. I'm newly on there. It's something I've always thought about doing, but I wasn't sure if I necessarily had the time for it. I've been involved in the BPAA as well. I'm the regional Northern California, Northern Nevada president for the BPAA. I'm also on their education committee and their FEC committee. So I don't know, I've got some extra free time. If you guys need something, what do you want to do? But I do that because it's crazy what you can learn from the industry. And here's an example I'll give. There was a guy that worked for me. He still works for me. He worked for me about 8 to 10 years. He'd never been to IAAPA. And he just saw things on a very small scope. Little Sparks, Nevada, Coconut Bowl, Wild Island, here we are. We got there, and within the first day, it was the end of the day, and we, went to the beverage station. And I think that's where I met Josh. But anyway, we went to the
familiar face there.
And he looks over at me, and he's teary-eyed, and he says, "Thank you." He goes, "I had no idea this was all out there." And from that day forward, that guy has just been a monster for us. He realized that there was more to it than just your little center or your FEC or whatever it is. And, we send a lot of people to IAAPA. We have about 25 managers on our team within the park. And that includes our water park as well. And we try to send close to 10 to 11 people every year. We send a good chunk because there's just so much value to it. Networking. If people, in my opinion, if people don't go to anything, they're just stuck in a hole. You really need to get out there and realize there's an industry out there. I mean, when you can sit there and listen to somebody from Disney or Universal at IAAPA, that is really cool. I mean, they have such a big perspective on things, but you can also apply it on a very small scale. We do it to where, let's say it costs one of my managers $5,000 to travel to IAAPA and back. Let's just hypothetically say that. The goal every time is you come back with $10,000 worth of ideas. And that's never been tough. We do, every single manager is basically required to do that. We need to make it worth your while. And people think it's cool when you go travel for work. I work harder when I travel for work than when I'm at work. So I cannot stress how important it is to get involved in this industry on any level. The networking is just amazing.
Yeah. And I think you just shared just a great example of the power of these associations and the networking and the education of being able to, if you're at your facility, that sometimes, it can feel like you are on a lonely island, even if it's a wild island. Sorry, I had to make the pun there. And then you get to an event like IAAPA or any of these other associations, BPAA, all of those, and you see, well, here's people who have the same problems and are doing the same things, and we're all able to come to these solutions together. One of the great things about IAAPA too is how broad it is and how many different sectors of the industry you can go to IAAPA and you can learn about FECs and zoos and aquariums and amusement and theme parks. But this is also a timely, I would say, message to talk a little bit about the summit that's coming up that is specific to FEC owners and operators. Craig, you're going to be there. What is it that that you are looking to gain, or the reason for you attending the FEC Summit, and why would someone attend the IAAPA FEC Summit?
I just think it's more of a drilled down version. IAAPA is, like you said, a very broad spectrum. And I think the IAAPA FEC Summit seems like kind of the players in the game, so to speak. No different than the BPAA when they have their summit. Which is, I think, next week, the week before. It's kind of the players in the game. You're going to talk with the big dogs. I've actually never been to this. I'm ashamed to say that I've never been. So I'm really excited just to kind of get there and, be able to network with people and, of course, work. But I think and I know it's, again, I know it's a tough time for people to get away, but even if you can get away for a day or two, I think that you're going to gain so much from it. There's a lot of good speakers. There's going to be some good, I'm excited about some of the tours we're going to do with, like, what is it, Odyssey and Bam Kazam and Octane Raceway and Mavericks and things like that. I'm excited about, seeing other facilities. I mean, when my better half and I travel, I'm like, hey, look, and she's like, come on, man, I don't want to go to another main event or a bowling alley. I'm like, no, it's cool. I'll buy you a beer. So, I think people need to get involved. They haven't had this summit in 2 years, and I think going will be very beneficial to anybody that goes. I can assure you of that.
Yeah. And Craig, you said that you work harder when you're at those events versus being back at work. And I know that's, a bit of a euphemism, but I totally understand what you're saying. You work differently, I'm sure, in those instances. And you also mentioned that you kind of challenge people. If you're going to spend this much money to send them there, well, you're going to come back with, X amount of ideas that we can implement. So I think my question is, when you're going to those things, how do you know what those great ideas are? Or is it just that you come back and you implement some things, and like you said, you have some favorite failures, and maybe it doesn't work, but maybe it does, and on average, it's a bigger return on investment than a detriment. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it does. Yeah, I think it does. We just come back, we'll vet the process. And typically what happens, we come back, we have our weekly manager meeting, and all the people that went to IAAPA are just on this crazed high, just nuts. And everybody else is like, all right, slow your roll. We've been grinding it out here, getting screamed at by, a guest or whatever it is. So slow down. And then we'll just start vetting the process. And then you start, over time, you had come back with 10, 15 ideas or whatever it is. Maybe it's a new game or a new attraction or a twist to this attraction. And then over time, you start to go, well, maybe this one just gets kind of pushed out. And then that list shrinks. And then we go, okay, then we start implementation within, we start talking about it at our L10 meetings, which when we really drill down into things and try to figure out how we're going to make that work. But yeah, we still kiss frogs constantly. We make mistakes. And if you don't make a mistake, you're not learning. And that is one of the beautiful things of our leadership team here and our ownership, is that, we always say, and this comes across weird, we promote mistakes. I used to tell people, I said, hey, if you pinch yourself, does it hurt? And they go, yeah. I said, because you're human, you're going to make a mistake, and that's okay. Let's learn from it. And that's it. And let's not do that again.
Yeah.
I've made my fair share of big money mistakes, and just have to keep on trucking.
Yeah, and you also talked a little bit ago about how the importance of data in making these decisions so that they're calculated risks. You said that data is huge, and then you said our industry struggles with that. I'm wondering if you could expand a little on that. What data does the industry struggle with, and why do you think that is?
Well, I think CRMs are very important, and the problem with the family entertainment center industry is we don't have one point of sale. Like for us, we have 6 point of sale systems. Our water park has 1. So being able to utilize that customer data to really manipulate, okay, I want to be able to get more, 20 to 30-year-olds from 6 to 10 p.m. in our arcade and having some of our new cocktails. You can really drill that down. I think with, I think cookies going away, on the magical interwebs, and things like that, you have to have that first party data. And it's funny because I talk to everybody in the industry, and I'm involved in the FEC 20 group, and everybody's like, we don't really use, we'll send some emails out to people. It's like, well, I want to be able to pinpoint the newly married couple with 2 kids that are under 10 years old that live within 5 miles of here. So without that data, you can't do that. So we are in the process of finding somebody right now that we can kind of take all of our data and put it and conglomerate into one area, and hopefully be able to utilize that data to, feed our marketing team. Any good facility is spending a decent chunk of money on marketing, and they can only do so much. Instead of shotgun marketing, or radio or digital billboard, which they have their importance as well. We utilize both. But you need to really be able to be within that digital space, be able to pinpoint certain things. Or if you want to do a special, like, Friday nights are slow. Like for us, Friday nights have been good, but not great. So how can we make that better? Well, who comes on Friday nights? We have Wi-Fi CRM as well. So if you log into our Wi-Fi, I get your information and we can take that information and go, okay, who's coming on a Friday night between 6 and 10? Now, how can we expand that and find, lookalikes and things like that? Our marketing team does a great job with this, but we just need to provide them with data. And that data comes down to, just email, birth dates, zip codes, those basic things like that. And it's hard in this industry. And I meant, Josh, the reason I say we struggle with this is because most FECs just have too many point of sales and everybody just throws their hands in the air and goes, forget it. I'm not going to do that. Yeah. So we can't.
And it probably becomes overwhelming and hard to know what data to look at. And the way you describe that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but in the past it's been, you cast a wide net, like you talked about with billboards and things like that. You get as wide a net as you can to just filter in as many people that might like your message as possible. Whereas what you're talking about is like little itty bitty nets, but they're very much more targeted to people and situations that you need to enhance. Is that kind of a good description?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's important to do shotgun marketing, we call it. Let's just get our messaging out there like we did for New Year's Eve recently, digital billboards all over town. But you also need to be able to pinpoint it so you can try to bring that customer in.
Yeah.
Well, with all these decisions and with these investments and the expansions that you made with Wild Island, you did win AAMA's Top FEC Award in 2019. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about what went into winning that award, what differentiated you from the other finalists, and what do you attribute the award to?
I would have to say that our management team, we talk a lot about we need to celebrate wins, and we don't do that very well. We'll get, all right, we had a great record weekend, check, let's move on. And we don't celebrate that win. So we decided to take some time and some efforts to let's try to win some awards, and let's see. And we're obviously completely biased, but we think we're one of the best. So we started applying for that. We applied for the Top FEC of the World, which this year we were a finalist for IAAPA. And just to be a finalist is really cool. Little old, biggest little city here, in Sparks, Nevada. So we had to dedicate some time to that and then celebrate those wins. It's a tough business, man. And I've got people here for 20 hours a day. Your phone just never stops, I don't think, except when I'm talking to you guys. So it's a tough business to be in, and you got to celebrate those wins. And you need to stand up and clap and jump on a table, whatever you need to do, or have a shot, whatever it is. You need to celebrate those wins. And I think that's really, really important. It's easy to get stuck in the grind. So we started focusing on trying to not be so humble and put ourselves out there a little bit more. And when we won, we were surprised. We really were. And then I think everybody else was too, because some of the other people were like, "Who are you?" which was great. People know who we are now. I think people always have for a while, but now that we've really put ourselves out there. But yeah, the Top FEC of the World, being a finalist for that was just super cool.
Yeah, congratulations on that and your win in 2019.
Yeah.
Very, very well deserved. I gotta get out there and check you out at some point. I, have not been out to Reno for a long time, but would love to stop by. But I want to go back to something you were talking about with your management team, because you said a lot of folks have been there. I think you said 14.7 years
Right.
on average, which is amazing. But I'm also guessing there's new people that are coming in and new managers and people that want to make a career of this industry. So what do you find is some of the most common advice or guidance that you're giving to people that are trying to kind of break into the industry, besides going to IAAPA?
Which is very important.
Yes.
That's a tough one. I just think you have to come into it with an open mind. You got to be able to work. It's a tough industry, but it can be extremely rewarding. I think that if you kind of sit on the sidelines and just kind of coast, when you drive home at the end of the night, you might not be as rewarding, but you can make an impact. We're creating experiences. I don't care if it's Disney or the smallest little fun park in a small town. You're creating experiences for those people. And you have to think like that every day, that family's coming in and they're just so excited to be there. And even though mom and dad might get angry at some point at their kids, they're still going to remember that, and they need to take home something, and making sure that their last memory is a memorable one, usually at a redemption store, that type of thing. Mm-hmm. So I think you're creating experiences, creating memories. We've done wakes here, we've done weddings here, we've done everything in between, and it's those are memories that people will never forget. And I think that that's one of the biggest things that people just kind of overlook in this industry. We have senior bowling leagues here. We have 46 bowling lanes. And those are memories for those people when they come in, especially over the past couple of years, when people are finally able to get out again. When they first came in the doors, and I'm going to get off track a little bit, sorry, but when we finally reopened after 80 days, I stood at the front doors, they opened up the doors, and people came in, and I'm like, hey, so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. And all these nerdy bowlers get down there and they're getting their bags out. That first ball hits the pins and the whole place erupted and people are just clapping. If you don't think that that's powerful, then you get out. You shouldn't be in this industry. And I walked away. I was crying. I'm like, oh, geez. Oh, I was crying because it was like, that's cool. We create memories. You've got an 80-year-old bowler throws the ball down slower than heck, and it finally hits the pins, and people just erupt with. So we blew that. I wish we would have made our reopening a bigger experience, a bigger balloon arches, and I don't care. We should have just blown it up. So I think that'd be my biggest thing, is that you got to remember you're creating experiences for people.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. That story gave me chills a little, and it's just a bowling ball hitting the pins. What it's supposed to do, right? But it was such an overwhelmingly emotional moment for so many people who had, and we thought 80 days was a really long time. Now we're about to hit 2 years in this pandemic here, and some people still, or many people still, have not gotten out and I would say brought their families to have fun again, and all for, of course, justifiable reasons. But you make such a good point of it can get lost in the day-to-day that when you come to work and your job is to serve guests who are having an experience and seeing a family entertainment center or an amusement park or a water park or whatever it is, that it becomes very normal and very routine to see people who are out and having fun and enjoying themselves. And you sometimes need to kind of project yourself onto the guest of this could be their first time out could be in 2 years or in 80 days or in a long time, and put yourself in that guest's mentality of they are here for that experience, and recognizing that what you do is really exciting, right? And
when my managers get into that negative space, I tell them, I say, go upstairs, take your work shirt off, or put on something that's not work related, come downstairs and just walk around and look at people. Just don't look at it from a business perspective. Just watch people, watch the expressions on their faces. And they'll be like, all right, I get it. I was in a bad place. It's pretty cool. I'm like, yeah, come on. Yeah. And I think that's, it's important that you have to keep that perspective.
Yeah. One of the other challenges, one of the many challenges that the pandemic has brought on too, has to do with staffing and employment. And you talk about the managers and the leaders that you have that have significant tenure at Wild Island. How have you been impacted by those challenges, and how have you navigated those as well?
Oh, we're no different, man. I'll tell you that. We're just no different. But it's interesting. I'll share another story if that's okay. Is I had one of my supervisors. He's 22, part-time college kid. Comes up to me and he goes, we do a pretty good job here. And I said, yeah, why do you say that? And he goes, you go everywhere else in town and people have really adjusted their hours, or they're closing on Mondays and Tuesdays and all that. He goes, and we've done none of that. He goes, you guys have set it up to where it's been business as usual. Now, it hasn't been easy. We a lot of smoke and mirrors, but I think that goes down to a lot of different things. We constantly have dealt with, like, let's do bonuses for people. Let's do cash bonuses if you cover a shift. Our culture has paid off dividends for that. We have, we kept everybody on during when we closed. Nobody went away, and everybody within our leadership team was allowed to work as many hours a week as they wanted. Salaried, had to work their 40. But we've just constantly touched base with people. The words please and thank you go a long way, even though, in my opinion, the younger generation doesn't quite get the please and thank yous that well. We still say it, and it's important that you show that and, be vulnerable. I had a conversation with one of my mechanics yesterday, and the guy just kicks butt for us. And we have to wear a mask when we're on shift, and I pulled my mask off and I'm talking to him. I said, you get brought up a lot with our management team. And he's like, I do. I said, well, it's either good or bad. Which one do you think it is? He's like, I hope it's good. And I just told him how much I appreciate what he does. And the kid works his butt off. And that goes a long way, coming from myself, that when we're standing in high velocity and he's trying to fix one of the vacuums in there, or whatever it is. And it's important that we all do that. And I think that we've been able to hold on to people. Now, granted, we still struggle. We're about 20% down on staff as it is today, but we've given out a lot of free money to be blunt. Hey, you showed up today, here's $50. We'll feed everybody on a weekend. So they don't eat here. We'll get something from, an outside source, a barbecue place or whatever it is. And we'll just cater the whole day for the staff. Just those little things. A lot of employee events. We have a lot of that type of stuff, employee incentive programs. So we spend a lot of time and energy on trying to make the experience good. We know that it's changed, especially over my 30 years of being and doing this. And that younger, generation has changed, and we need to adapt to that. Instead of complain about it, just adapt to it. You have to figure it out. Talk to them. They'll tell you what the heck they want.
Absolutely. Yeah. I find way too many people are trying to look at it through their, as I call them, old and cracked lenses, right? Mm-hmm. Instead of looking at it through the younger generation's lenses, because they'll tell you, kind of how to operate. But I'm curious, since you've had so much experience, been there for 30 years, you talk so much about culture, talk so much about what great things you're doing there. But what if you weren't in this business? What would you be doing?
Oh no, man.
Would you be at the beverage station?
Yes. I don't know. I think that I would probably be in some type of leadership role within a company, but I don't know what it would be. I really don't. Hopefully I wouldn't still be pouring concrete. No disrespect to anybody that does, but it just wasn't for me, man. But I don't know. I think I would be in some type of leadership role, because I think that's the most rewarding. Many moons ago in my first marriage, when I got married, the DJ told him not to say anything. And he gave one piece of advice, and it was a great piece of advice. And he starts talking. He goes, Greg told me not to talk, but I have something to say. And I'm thinking, I told you don't talk, let's play music. And he said, you need an imaginary time card in your pocket. And when you go to work, you get into the garage, about to get in your car, you grab that time card, you put it in there. You go to work, and when you come home, you take that out, you put it out in your home. And I've always done that. I still do it to this day. I just did it this morning. I put my stupid imaginary time card in there, trying to separate those. That's been harder over time, but I just think that being a strong leader, it's not going to always work out that way. I'm going to continue to work even when I'm at home. So I've broken the DJ's rule, but it still can be a good thing that you try to do from time to time.
Yeah.
That's such good advice too, and has become increasingly difficult with more and more people working from home, that it's something that needs to be an intentional reminder. It's something I always try to work at, and definitely far from being fully there, but I appreciate that reminder. I'll say that.
Work-life balance.
Exactly. So Craig, as we start to wind this down here, if people wanted to get a hold of you directly, or if they wanted to learn more about Wild Island, where would you send them?
They can go to our website, wildisland.com. There's plenty of information there. My contact information's on there, or you're welcome to email me. Let me give out my cell phone address. I'm just kidding.
It's been done.
My email is cbuster@wildisland.com. Pretty easy. B as in boy, by the way. Yes, my last name is Buster. Nobody believes that. So yeah, cbuster@wildisland.com, or just go to wildisland.com.
Excellent. Craig, this has been a fascinating conversation, and we really appreciate your time and all of your insight. Do you have any sort of last final thoughts for our listeners?
I guess my last final thoughts would be, get involved in the industry somehow, please. Help. Educate yourself, share your experiences. There's people out there like you that have been through what you're going through. And I would have to say that, there's a couple companies, I won't name them, but a couple companies that helped us and me get through this crazy COVID time, by having weekly Zoom calls and things like that, where people were able to really express their emotions. And that means the world to me. And because we're all just humans, man, we just need to be there for each other. But get involved in this industry, because it has a lot to give and there's a lot to learn. I'm far from knowing everything at this point. I will continue to strive for that, but get involved.
Excellent. Well, Craig, thank you so much. We really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you today. So thank you for being here. And for everyone out there who is watching and listening, just remember, we are all Attraction Pros.
Thanks for listening to the Attraction Pros podcast.
Make sure to subscribe so you can tune in when new episodes release. And even better, please leave us a review on iTunes.
For more information, visit attractionpros.com.